Have you ever thought about what to ask your English teacher to get more for your money in your English lessons? Today, that's what we're going to talk about with a special guest I have here to help me answer these questions and give you some great ideas. Welcome to English Coach 3Ts. I'm teacher Tanya, and if we haven't met before, I'm a nomad traveling mostly around the southwestern part of the United States with my home base in Southern California. And today I'm excited to introduce to you another teacher that you have met before from our English Coach 3Ts staff. But before I do that, I don't want to forget to tell you that you can get help with all of the vocabulary and phrases that we're going to use in this video today by joining my free More English Club. In this club, you're going to get an email every time I make a new video with help with the vocabulary, ideas to practice so you can remember more, and special bonuses along the way. And you're going to get access to more than 20 practice sheets I've already made for past videos. So let's get into it. Today I'm joined by teacher Tiana, and if you have watched some of our older videos, you know that Tiana was a regular part of our YouTube channel and continues to be a teacher here at English Coach 3Ts for some of our individual students. So Tiana, I'd love for you to take a minute and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. So I'm teacher Tiana. I've been teaching English for almost 10 years now, and I'm loving it. Most recently, I worked as an academic supervisor at an international school in San Diego, which unfortunately was closed down about a month ago due to the political situation here. But I am really enjoying getting to reconnect with some of my students and make videos with my mom.
And I am super grateful to have her here with me. And especially for today's topic, which was Tiana's idea, and such a great topic that I think you don't hear enough of here on YouTube and even in your classes. So would you like to introduce the topic for us today?
Absolutely. I know that this is something that we both do in every single lesson. And it's a place that I think we're always trying to pull more out of our students, and not enough people are taking advantage of this. So at the end of every lesson, we will ask you, do you have any questions? And I think when students hear this, they're like, oh, I don't know. They freeze up. But this is one of the most valuable parts of our lessons. If you do nothing else in the lesson but ask me questions, I will tell you you've done a fantastic job.
For sure. And if you are a part of our We Speak or She Speaks Fluency program, you know I start every single lesson. I start and end every single lesson.
There you go.
With this question, do you have any questions? Because one of the things I hear students say a lot is that they have no one to ask questions. And so it's really important to take advantage of that. So today we're going to give you some ideas of some questions you can ask so that when you come to this point in your lesson, you're going to know what to ask. So I would recommend that you take some notes, pause the video as we make each of these suggestions, and it might also help you to think of questions that you would add to our list. And we would love for you to share those in the comments below. So what are some of the questions you might ask? And before we get into that, I will say a lot of this is based on our experience as teachers, but also as language learners ourselves. And
That's right.
I will just admit that I often do exactly what we just said. My teacher says,
Me too.
Do you have any questions? I'm like, no. And because of that, we have a suggestion that's really going to help you with that. But let's get started with some of the questions that would be really great to ask.
That's right. This is one that I have actually heard a couple times and I think is a really important question. When your teacher introduces a new word or phrase, you can ask, is this word used positively or negatively?
Yes, and I think this is a great question to ask, and also to understand that sometimes it's used in both ways. But I do want to point out here that don't get too focused on being perfect with everything you're
Right.
learning. It's okay to ask these questions and find out about this, but also a great way to learn these things is to go ahead and just use the words and phrases you're learning and make mistakes and listen to the way people are using words, because this is another great way to learn.
Right.
All right, what's another great question to ask?
You can ask your teacher, are there any words that belong to this word family? What's a word family? It's a group of words that you could say sound similar, but they all share a common root, and it's maybe the verb, noun, adjective, and adverb that all come from the same word. So, for example, if you're practicing pronouncing the word thought and you want to know if there are other words in this word family, there are. Thought is the noun. It's a thought or a thing, but it can also be an adjective to describe someone who is thoughtful, someone who thinks about other people. Or you can use it as an adverb, thoughtfully. So when someone acts thoughtfully, they are thinking about their actions.
And speaking of words that sound similar, like that particular group of words, sometimes there are words that the pronunciation might be similar to another word that really doesn't have anything to do with that particular word. So they might have similar pronunciation. So you could ask your teacher, are there other words that have similar sounds in them or similar pronunciation? So for example, you may have seen a video that I have made. I just got hit with something. that I've made a few videos like this. For example, world is one of the words that's very difficult for people to pronounce. World. However, a lot of people have no problem pronouncing the word were, like we were going to do something. And so that word world has the same sound as were. It also has the same sound as a lesser known word, whirl. If something is going around and round, we can say it's whirling. But if you can pronounce the word whirl, then the word world is a little easier to pronounce. And in asking your teacher about other words, they will probably be able to think of words where you already understand that sound. In fact, this is a tactic, this is a technique we use a lot in our classes, is to help students build on pronunciation they already understand and know.
Absolutely. With where I was thinking of old then.
Yes.
Right? You say we're old.
Yes.
Put them together, world.
Exactly. So, and this makes it easier because it's something you maybe already know how to do. All right. What's another question that would be good to ask?
So, if on a bigger scale, we've talked about some questions that are good to ask for a specific piece of vocabulary, but you can also ask your teacher for better strategies in learning. You could say, how can I practice this more effectively? How can I practice my pronunciation more effectively?
Absolutely. And this is going to prompt your teacher to ask you more questions, or in other words, he or she will think of more questions to ask you that will be more helpful and more specific to how you learn.
And this is why you're taking a live class, because your teacher will get to know you and your specific needs and your specific learning style.
Exactly. And speaking of that, another question, let me just say, another thing you can ask is about your particular learning challenge. So it's a good idea to kind of become aware of what really challenges you when you're trying to learn English. And I know for myself, one of my challenges in learning Spanish is verb conjugation. The verb conjugations in Spanish are so much more difficult than they are in English, at least from my perspective.
I agree.
And especially the subjunctive. So I would really encourage you to not just say, how do I conjugate this verb, which is okay, and that's a good question, but rather to ask your teacher for ideas on how you can learn conjugation or whatever it is that challenges you, like Tiana said, in a more effective way. And share something that challenges you with learning Spanish. She's learning lots of languages.
Right. Definitely in Spanish and French, like prepositions, all those little words that tend to be different than they are in English. So that can be really tricky. And I know that it's tricky when you're learning English as well.
For sure.
Speaking of prepositions, if you have a specific question like that about grammar or a specific concept, you can ask your teacher, do you have any more resources for that? Chances are your teacher knows quite a few websites, or they have a worksheet, or they might know what you can ask AI to practice that concept. You can also ask them for other things, like if you want to have some movie recommendations or songs that you can listen to in English, just so that you have something enjoyable to practice.
Absolutely. And you know I'm a big proponent of having something enjoyable. In other words, I'm a big
Advocate.
For
I teach my mom English.
She helps my brain pauses. Okay, so proponent, advocate, I'm someone who recommends this. Brain pauses can happen to anyone, but particularly people who are almost 60 more than people that are 27. So
they happen to me too, though.
Yes,
yeah,
for sure. And that's a great place for us to also just remind you that it doesn't matter if you're speaking your native language or your second language, we all forget the word we were trying to say. So,
which, can I add an extra a bonus question in here?
Yes.
Ask your teacher to help you say something you forgot the word for.
Yes.
Instead of looking it up.
Yes.
And I was thinking about this earlier because we do this even with each other. What's that thing?
Yeah.
That this is the example I always use. What's that thing, like it's like a rope, but you hold your dog with it when you're on a walk. What do you call
leash?
A leash.
Yes.
Yes. And then you use it in the sentence again.
Yes.
I was looking for my leash because I wanted to take the dogs on a walk.
W-A-L-K.
They're down, right down there.
They don't want to say that word. They know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, I would say this is one of the most valuable things you can do with your teacher, your tutor, your language exchange is ask for words you are trying to think of in the way that Tiana just did that. So, all right, I have another question. What is it? I remember. What's the difference between this and this is to ask your teacher. For example, what's the difference between the word nice and the word kind? See that dirt coming up?
That's Mochi.
That's Mochi.
Mochi.
He's making a really comfortable place to live. So, lot to live, to say.
Yeah.
What's the difference between kind and nice, for example? They might be synonyms in the dictionary, but we as fluent speakers know when we're talking about somebody who's nice, it's more like they're polite. They say the right things. They know to say thank you and they know to say thank you and please. Those are the nice kind of things. But kind is more,
I think it comes from the heart.
More like the heart. That's a great way to say it. Kind is more like it's almost like thoughtful. It's a head thing, whereas kind is more of a heart thing.
Oh, you said kind is more of a head thing, but kind is more of a heart thing.
Yeah, whatever she said.
Nice is more of a head thing. It's something you've been taught.
Yes.
It's a cultural thing.
Yes.
Heart is, I can't say it either. Kind is, it comes from your heart.
Yes, and it's more of a way of being. You know, that is such a great question. I'm going to include some more examples on the free practice sheet I talked about at the beginning of this video. And remember, the link is in the description. What is the last question?
All right, so we both talked about how we both sometimes forget, or you might say blank. Your mind goes blank when our teachers ask us, do you have any questions? So this is, I think, maybe the most important tip, is to write down your questions throughout the week, between your lessons.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or if you're watching a TV show, I just had a student with some really great questions about the TV show she's watching. And we only got through half the list because they were such great questions, you know, but now we have those written down and we can revisit them and keep practicing them so that they become like part of her active vocabulary.
Absolutely. And having said that, a little bonus tip is to do that when you're watching movies, when you're reading, whenever you are practicing your English on your own, take some notes. And even if you forget to write down your questions, glance or quickly look at your notes before your class.
And hopefully you've written down some of these questions that we talked about today, and you can apply them in your classes.
Absolutely. And if you missed any, just go back and write them down. And if you're ready to learn even more with us, I suggest you watch one of the videos that I'll put here at the end of the video, and I'll see you there. Bye.